Hi, Deb. So your presentation is second on the agenda. If I can ask you to turn your camera off and put yourself on mute until council calls upon you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor Allen, it is 6:30, so you may start the meeting when you're ready.
Thank you. Okay, can I have mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Councillor Ma and Councillor Moore, that the regular meeting of the Council, Township of Springwater of May 5th, 2021, come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Due to COVID, Council is taking the necessary steps to limit in-person meetings. As such, we are Zoom meeting and streaming this live. You can watch it live on the Township website at www.springwater.ca. You can listen to it by phone during the meeting by dialing 647-558-0588 and using the ID code 884-6904-2066 and the pound sign after. This is available during the meeting. And if you're unable to do either of those and want to watch the streaming afterward, you can watch the video on the Township's YouTube channel accessible by the website. Council, are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest this evening? Okay, seeing none, we have a couple of deputations. The first one is with respect to traffic calming measures, Mill Street West and Hillsdale, presentation by Ms. Sharon Hicks. Welcome, Ms. Hicks, and go ahead and present, please.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Councillor Ritchie for supporting this petition and to Clerk Ainsworth for helping me get a little organized. I've lived in Hillsdale for almost 50 years, and the last several years, the traffic has become very dangerous. I think Mill Street is particularly vulnerable to speeding, because unlike a lot of the streets in the village that are short and close-ended, Mill Street is long and open at each end to 80 kilometer speeds. By the time they reach the Birch Farms, a lot of the speeders are doing probably 100, and they continue all the way along until they reach the village limit right by the cemetery in Hillsdale. And it's not very far from the cemetery to the highway, and slowing down doesn't seem to be in the cards for an awful lot of drivers. The cars and trucks fly up the street with blatant disregard for pedestrians and other traffic, of dirt bikes and ATV that go very quickly up the street to ride in the trails just behind the cemetery. And one of the concerns is also the heavy commercial farm equipment. It's a huge problem. Most of the drivers are very careful, but some of the heavy machinery is out of control. Last fall, when I was waiting to cross the street, a harvester went past me so quickly it blew my hat off. And I'm only a few houses from the highway. I'm a farmer, so I know this heavy equipment does not stop easily. And one of the biggest issues of concern is the situation where the sidewalk close to the intersection of Mill Street and Murphy Street, the sidewalk is discontinued there, and pedestrians, mums with carriages and children on trikes, have to go out onto the road. They have no option. And that's right by Murphy Street, where a lot of the children from the subdivision have to cross the road there to go to school. And people coming from the subdivision while walking also come out there. And that's also where the sidewalk discontinues. And unfortunately, one of the homes right by that intersection also have a lot of vehicles, and they park on the sidewalk. So not only are you forced onto the road, but you can't get back onto the sidewalk quickly because of the traffic parked there. And so this is a very busy place. It's only a few hundred yards from where the village limit is. And the school bus stops at that intersection also. So it's extremely busy. People are forced onto the road, and the traffic is so fast there, it's really quite frightening. And the people who walk here are very concerned about the speed of the traffic, because it's such a short distance from the 80 speed zone to the highway, and there are all sorts of circumstances on that short distance where speeders are going to get pedestrians into a lot of trouble. So the residents of Hillsdale are asking for your help to slow this traffic down.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Hicks. I'll open it up. First of all, let's get a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Ma. Councillor Ritchie, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and thank you, Mrs. Hicks, for coming tonight. Thank you for the presentation and all the work you've put into it. I've heard from different people along there. It isn't that long ago, Mr. Birch gave me quite a speech about the speeding as well, too. So we definitely need to look at that. I'd like to receive this, but I'd like to amend the motion that we send this back to staff for a report to come back to council to see what we can do for calming measures.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Cabral. Further discussion? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you, I guess, to Fleet Manager Howe, just in respect of how our traffic calming policy would play into this.
Manager Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. We certainly could. I know, I believe studies have been done in the past, but it's something that we could get the radar board out there again and collect some more data and get a true picture of what's going on to add to the report to come back if that's the direction of council.
Okay. Further? Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through to you to Manager Hoff. The works that are being proposed as part of this was in the works for this year, and then we subsequently had moved it to 2022, I believe, is where it sits in the capital plan at this point. Is there sidewalks and a complete, when we do that work, is that included in the pedestrian portion of it, included in that work?
I will just add to it, what would be a start and a finish date of that according to our plan thus far, please?
Okay, through you, Mayor Allen, to the Deputy Mayor, I guess, to start. So yes, sidewalks are part of the design works for that street, right, to be reconstructed, meeting the AODA standards right from Highway 93 to the village limits. So that part's in there. And as far as I understand, yes, it's slated in the 10-year.
You were not too clear with the internet reception. Can you just repeat that, Manager Hall, please? Maybe, okay.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, through you, Mayor Allen, to Deputy Mayor Coughlin and to yourself. So yeah, sidewalks are planned for as part of the reconstruction from Highway 93 to the village limits, meeting the AODA standards. And the it's currently slated in for 2022 in the 10-year capital. So pending budget approval, it would go ahead in 2022.
Okay. CEO, did you want to add anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I was just, if Manager Howe wasn't able to, if you couldn't hear him, I was just going to say, repeat what he had just indicated, that it is planned for the 2022 capital plan.
Okay. Any other, thank you. Any other comments, council? So We have an amendment to the motion that it be received and referred back to staff for a report with respect to traffic calming. If there are no other comments, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Mrs. Hicks, and we will be following up on this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Stay well.
Stay well.
Next, 3.2, we have a deputation regarding outdoor safe station AED for Glen Huron Park. Presentation by Ms. Deb Van Natter. Ms. Van Natter, are you? Oh, there you are. Good.
Hi there.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'd also like to thank Brian Anderson for encouraging me to write this deposition and providing you some information. Mayor Allen and members of council and staff, my name is Deb Van Natter, and I've lived in the beautiful township of Springwater for 27 years. The first 7 on Finley Mill and the last 20 within Glen Huron Estates, neighboring Carson Ridge. For the past year, I've been working with Action First Aid. We're a international company, but we're located here in Barrie. And specifically, I've been providing awareness and education on the value and importance of automated external defibrillators, commonly known as AEDs. And particularly with respect to Bill 141, which was a bill that was passed in legislation in the spring and will become law probably within the year. They're just waiting for COVID to settle down, but you will start to see a lot more public access AEDs because we now recognize their importance. The reason I'm here is, as I said, I live on Glen Huron Drive. And we are a neighborhood of approximately 98 homes, 2 more are being built. And a neighbor, Steve Barenhart, just moved to our community from Horseshoe Valley. And we were chatting. And the reason he moved was because he was very close to dying from a sudden cardiac arrest because he lived in Horseshoe Valley. And it took quite a bit of time for EMS to get there, and he almost died. So he moved to our area so that he was closer to RVH and to EMS services. So he approached me, and knowing that I worked at Action First Aid, and we've had long conversations about creating a cardiac safe environment here by putting in an outdoor safe station at the top of our park. So that's at the top of Glen Huron Drive. And it would be an outdoor AED that would have 24/7 access. Our community would fund it. And the reason I'm presenting to you today is because we were hoping that we could put it on Springwater land. It's very much in the center of the community, but it's also close to an area where a lot of people are playing, working out. We have a basketball court, a skating rink, pickleball, and soccer field. I just wanted to share a little bit of information. I also wanted to give some accolades to the Township of Springwater. As you may or may not know, we have been very closely involved. Action First Aid has been very closely involved with the Township of Springwater since 2019, and in particular with the Recreation Parks and Facilities Manager, Ryan Anderson, who quickly embraced the concept of optimizing public access of defibrillators within our township. To date, we have 16 locations, AED locations in Springwater, including 12 outdoor locations and a recent memorial safe station that was just put on the front of Farm to Save on Finley Mill Road. I also wanted to let you know that our president, Deb Henning, recently showcased Springwater at an international conference in Seattle on being a model cardiac safe community. So what we have created here is something quite unique, and again, a flagship in moving the access of these life-saving devices out to the community. As you may or may not know, 80% of cardiac arrests happen in the home or in public, and particularly now where we're spending a lot of our time. there is only a 2 to 5% chance of survival with CPR alone. And if you do not have access to an AED within 6 minutes, your chances of survival go down 10% every minute. So again, with this new information, we're trying to get these devices out. You may have seen a recent article in the news last month by County of Simcoe paramedic Chief Andrew Robert, who cites that cardiac arrests are the most urgent call they get. And they have a posted time of just over 7 minutes. And they're able to get there. They said typically it's 55% of the time, but I would hate to be one of those 50 or 45% chances of them not getting there. And that doesn't take into account, they start the clock when they get into their EMS vehicles, and it also doesn't take into account rural and busy times. So he was also quoted as saying he feels there would be a real benefit to having more public access defibrillators in communities. So in closing, I just wanted to say that the reason I'm here is to educate you a little bit more about AEDs. We've also been in touch with Glen Apto Estates. They're also looking at doing the same thing. And for today, we're really looking at just being open for us being able to fund an outdoor AED and place it with access to hydro on the front of our park area. We would fund the first 8 years of the pads and batteries, and then thereafter we will go back out to our own community and have further discussions with you. I do have a couple of things to show. Do you want me to take questions first, Mayor Allen?
No, go ahead and share a screen and show us, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Okay, I'm going to first show you, first of all, I typically present on Google Meets, so I apologize if my husband is somewhat close to here to help me. So I'm going to share screen, correct? Is that correct? Is that what I do? Yes, thank you. And I'm first going to show you a 3-minute video, if I may, that will bring this quite to light. Just 1 second here.
Sudden cardiac arrest can happen anywhere, at any time, to anyone. For the best chance of survival, an automated external defibrillator, or AED, needs to be available immediately. For every minute that goes by without an AED, the likelihood of survival drops 10%. We are highly dependent on each other to step in and take action. All we need is to be equipped with the power to save a life. Over the past 15 years, we've come a long way with community AED placements, and lives have been saved. But when we observe the current landscape, it is clear there is no consistent look to help the public quickly find an AED. It's time for visual unity, a proven concept worldwide. Meet SaveStation. SaveStation offers a universal housing solution for any AED. Never before have defibrillators been so easily recognizable and accessible. And now, with new technology, SaveStations can be placed outdoors, providing 24/7 protection. SaveStation provides the perfect opportunity for local businesses and corporate sponsors to give back to their communities in a meaningful way. Neighborhood programs are now bringing these life-saving devices closer to home. SaveStations can also house other life-saving equipment all in one place. Education, public awareness, and understanding are such important parts of the SaveStation movement. SaveStation provides CPR and AED training videos and resources to help organizations establish and maintain a strong AED program. It's time for everyone to be empowered with the skills and confidence to step in and take action, because defibrillators are not for trained responders only. AEDs alone don't save lives. People do. You can be the reason for the next great save. Every second matters. Get involved. Protect the people closest to you. Initiate a Safe Station program for your workplace, within your community, or right in your own neighborhood. Together, we have the power to save a life.
Okay, whoops, let's stop that.
Oftentimes you really do rely on imaging to get.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to show you the park here. Just one second if I can get this. And I think you might have seen this. Let me just open this.
Yes, it was included in our materials. Thank
Okay,
you.
so this is this is the top of the park, and this is the hydro beam. And we are looking at putting it right on the front of that. That's very close to the road. And that is where we are thinking of putting it. And this is what it will look like. So it will look like this, but put on the wood location. So it's heated, ventilated, and monitored. And so as soon as it's taken out, call goes to 911, and then it also has a GPS tracker that is able to track where exactly the AED is taken to. So it's, yeah. So that's all I have to show. Can I answer any questions?
You can take the presentation off screen if you could, so I can see all the faces, please.
Okay.
That was very good. I was impressed that you were able to get that working so quickly.
Okay, but let me get to what you're asking me to do now. Just a second. I think I just go to Tom. Yeah. Sorry. I'm over 60. I know that's not a very good excuse. Sorry.
I only know how to turn it on, not off.
Sorry. I just have to get back to my screen here and get all that off.
We'll just
So stop share? Yeah, thank you.
So.
Sorry about that. I'm so sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Van Natter. Mover and seconder, get this on the floor, please. Councillor Moore, Councillor Ma, and Councillor Moore.
Thank you very much, Mayor Allen. Throughout the township, we have several safe stations and AEDs. Some the township has purchased, and there are a few that small communities have purchased and put on homes to have locally. What I'd like to propose that because this is 100 homes and it's on a township park, hydro by township, and I think that trying to collect from folks over the course of many years would be problematic, that we look to pay for this ourselves. So I would ask CAO Schmidt or Director Radigan to provide me some options, or us some options on a fund that we could access to pay for this.
Okay, Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Moore. This may be funded from the Tax Rate Stabilization Reserve if you're looking for funding it this year. I believe the current unaudited balance of the Tax Rate Stabilization Reserve at December 31st, 2020 is approximately $370,000.
Okay, follow on, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Then I would like to propose an amendment to the motion when we're finished to have the township pay for this.
And do we know what the cost is of this?
I would ask Deb Van Natter. I just remember the last ones, but that was last year, and I'm sure the price has gone up.
Ms. Van Natter, what are your costs for this, please?
Well, if we put it on a home, they're about $3,800. If we put it as a backsplash, and then the Avia Go, which is the GPS tracker, it's probably closer to 5,000. And then we're looking at pads and batteries in 4 years, which are $250-ish. And then just under $200 a year for the Wi-Fi tracking. That's the monitoring. But we would, we would be sure to sharpen our pencils and make them available at the cost, which was quite a bit below cost in our partnership with Springwater.
Okay. Okay, who else had a comment then? So there's an amendment on the floor. Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Ritchie. Okay. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just, I guess, a comment more than anything else. It's certainly worthwhile. We know it's worthwhile. Council voted for it before, but I just want to be cautious moving forward. It's wonderful to say that Township will be paying for these, but we also have to be cognizant. And if we do move forward with this, I'd like to see some form of policy put in place then, because there's a lot of locations that would want to have their own safe station too. So I think I admire the presentation. I admired the effort. I think it's wonderful. That is an area that's kind of off by itself. But I can also see, based on us moving forward with this one, that we're going to end up getting requests for a lot of other ones too. And they're not cheap. They're fairly big ticket items. But the fact is that with the number of locations that I can envision where they could be useful, and that's what we had considered before, was moving forward and popping one in here, popping one in there. Just whether or not we might be able to move forward with this, but also develop some kind of policy to address it when we get other requests.
Yeah. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. What I would recommend is that council deal with this request and that an IFC be submitted requesting a policy. That way we're keeping it separate.
Okay. Councillor Moore, would you consider that?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. The reason I thought Township should be involved in the purchase of this particular one was because of the size of the community. It is 100 homes. So a policy about, maybe size of community is worth looking at. So certainly I'll put in an IFC if that's needed.
So are you changing, withdrawing that motion and changing that, amending it to accept this project on city property, township property?
I think the clerk wanted me to deal with this separate. So I would leave my request to proceed with this today and then put in a separate request for an IFC, I think. Is that Clerk Ainsworth? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Cabral?
No, Mayor Allen, thank you. That's what I was thinking, was along the same lines.
Okay. Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question. I was curious. I thought we might have funded the ones we got before out of the golf tournament. I just wanted a clarification on that one.
CEO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's correct. Back in August of 2019, Council was brought forward a report of which funds were set aside from the Springwater Swing Golf Tournament net proceeds to fund the purchase of 12 outdoor save stations.
Follow up?
Yes.
Thank you. So my thinking is to help support Councillor Moore's idea and keeping in mind what Councillor Cabral said, if we take it out of tax dollars, then we're certainly going to be obligated, I believe, every time a community comes forward and wants one of these, which I definitely support. But if we take it out of the Springwater Golf Tournament funds, once the funds are gone, then we can have a reasoning and to be polite for not putting them out in every community that might want one.
Okay. I'm sure, Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I also like this, support this idea, both with Councillor Moran and Councillor Cabral. With the next part of it, with having like a policy, maybe a policy on what type of AED, we should probably stay within the same standard as we have now throughout the township. So I know there's several different ones out there, which is more costly.
Yeah. Okay. I certainly commend this community for going ahead and getting the support and bringing this proposal forward. I don't agree with the amendment in this case. We did fund a dozen of these, and we might fund more in future. So I'd like to see an IFC on this to see the possibility of an ongoing program. But this community has raised funds. They have the funds available. I think we should give them access to the land and let them move with it. But I think to go ahead and pay for this, it just opens the door for many requests without the policy. So I can't support the amendment, but I certainly support cooperating to make this move forward. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you, I guess to council and to Deb as well. Would there be an opportunity then, if the community has done the cost sharing portion to implement it, but moving forward, I believe that Mrs. Benatar was speaking about the community continuing to pay for it for 8 years, which I agree with Councillor Moore, putting someone in charge of creating that and just even the, I want to say the administration of those would just be, to me, I think that the municipality, like we do when there's an initiative brought forward by a community, the community typically, whether it's in recreation, I mean, this is a unique situation and one that I commend. Absolutely, I think it's wonderful that it's happened. But if the community was to bring forward their initiative, pay for their initial putting it on the park, and then the municipality from that point forward takes over all costs associated with it, that to me would make sense in that we are doing our part and the community has still been able to do theirs.
Okay, CAO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just maybe further to the Deputy Mayor's comments, again, for consideration of councils, if you were to consider the possible donation of the unit to the township on behalf of the residents, and then staff can look after the installation and the ongoing monitoring of the unit, similar to what we do with all the other units. So if they were to go out and actually acquire or purchase the unit and then donate the unit to the township, again, we could take it from there and work with them as to preferred location.
Follow on, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you to CAO Schmidt and the rest of council. That would be an initiative and a precedent that I'd be willing to set right now. I mean, that would be, I think, the best of both worlds.
Councillor Moore, would you consider adjusting your amendment to that effect?
Yeah, I certainly would. And I think that's fair. I know this is not going to be the last BC of communities wanting AEDs. So, but I think that we can cost share that way without putting the administrative burden on Ms. Natter or other folks. Then I would be willing to do that.
And Ms. Van Natter, does that sound like a workable plan for you?
That sounds unbelievable. And because we are speaking to two other communities in Springwater, we're at Greystone right now, we're at Horseshoe Valley. So this is something that is going to really take off, especially with Bill 141. And I think that is an amazing partnership. So yeah, very much so.
Thank you, Councillor Cabral. You're muted still.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To that point, actually, that's what twigged me to the fact when you said to Glenn, it was going to be a number of them. But I do have one question, and although they looked very similar, and it could very well be the same one that we currently have deployed as a township, do you know if they are the same as the ones the township currently has in place, Ms. Van Natter?
We are the company that manages all of your AEDs, and you do have a couple. Some of them are being replaced. You typically have a lot of Zoll 3s, and we would like the idea of having them be the same unit for all of Springwater. The cost is not really that different for the AED. The cost really comes down to the actual cabinet. You have some that are sort of backboards, you have some that are freestanding, and that's really the cost. The AEDs themselves are pretty much the same. So we would really put in whatever was most cost effective for our community, but also in keeping with what Springwater has. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Clerk Ainsworth, do you have wording for an amendment then, please?
Yes, the wording that I've drafted is that the motion now before council will be amended as follows. Add, and that council hereby approve the installation of an outdoor safe station slash AED at Glen Huron Park, donated by the residents of Glen Huron Estates, with ongoing costs to be funded by the Township of Springwater.
Okay, all those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Van Natter.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Right, take care, stay well.
Bye now. Thank you.
Okay, next we move on to question period. And members of the public, oh, sorry. Do the main motion then? Sorry.
Yes, please.
Clerk Ainsworth, go ahead.
So Mayor Allen, we would just need a vote on the main motion as amended.
Okay, I don't think we need to read that again. I'll have a vote on that. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Now question period. Members of the public are able to submit questions either in writing or in person by contacting the clerk, the details of which are set out in the agenda. And Clerk Ainsworth, do we have any questions for this evening?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There has been a submission by Bill French, and Mr. French is on the line this evening to provide his submission.
Hello, Mr. French.
Well, thank you, Mayor Allen and Council, for allowing me to kind of pose two brief questions, and it's going to be on agenda item 7.1, Code of Conduct. But before I start, I want to congratulate you on what you just did with the AEDs. I think that's a brilliant solution, because we've always had communities support a lot of local initiatives, and then the township picks up operating costs. So I think that's a good template going forward. And a special thank you to my Councillor Anita Moore, for arranging for the pickup of a wayward couch that was dropped on the side of Grenfell Road in the last couple of days, and the, I guess, township staff that picked it up today. So thank you. But that's not the subject of my question. So my question is, would it not be more appropriate that the provincial government develop a code of conduct for all elected positions in Ontario, including the MPPs, and provide an avenue for complaints such as an Ontario Integrity Commissioner operating similar to the Office of the Ombudsman, is my first question. And the other one's more of a follow-up. So is there any comments or thoughts on that? Because that's kind of more in keeping with the delegations I know you took to the minister, put some onus back on them and get rid of some red tape.
Yes, as you were reading the report attached to this agenda item, this has been talked about, having a standard code of conduct developed with provincial input, and having an oversight body for our integrity commissioners. So we have been and continue to discuss those aspects of it, and so we appreciate your input and opinion with respect to that.
Okay, my follow-up is very brief, and I think it's maybe a challenge to all of council. With our current cancel culture movement, is it even possible for an elected official to actually conduct themselves in a manner that would not be subject to complaint, since anything we do or say can be misconstrued or misinterpreted?
And Mr. French, how would you define cancel culture movement?
Well, there's nothing acceptable anymore. As soon as you say any kind of word, it can be misconstrued or misinterpreted, or whatever the case may be. And that's why I really do think code of conduct should stick to ethical behavior rather than maybe some bad habits.
Okay, well, thank you for your input, and we'll certainly take those into consideration in our discussions. Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question possibly through to the clerk. I thought I read in the documentation that we're going to be talking about, there was an opportunity for public as well to make submissions. Maybe that time period's passed, but I thought they could do that. And I just wanted to make Mr. French aware of that, if that is correct.
Yes, we're aware of that, Mr. French. In the report, there's a link.
Yeah. Yes, I did see that. And but I really do think the pressure needs to come from our local councils, because the province is quite willing to tell you what to do, but they don't seem to follow the same level of conduct that's expected of the local level. And I think there just should be an even playing field. And I know those comments have been made since the whole concept of an integrity commissioner came about 4 years ago. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. French. Any other questions, Clerk Ainsworth?
Mayor Allen, no, that was the only submission.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 5.1, minutes of council. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral and Councillor Moore. Any questions or comments for minutes 1 through 5? The motion is that the minutes of council list herein be approved as presented. Special meetings on April 19th and April 21st. And special meeting of council closed session April 21st, special meeting of council April 21st, and the regular meeting of council on April 21st. All those in favor? Is carried. Item 5.3, minutes of board, committees, and organizations. Mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. Councillor Ma and Councillor Cabral. Items 1 through 8. Any comments with respect to these? Seeing none, that the minutes of boards, committees, and other organizations listed herein be received as information. And that's the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, January 14th. The Cultural Advisory Committee, February 2nd. Community Broadband Advisory Committee, March 9th. Springwater Public Library Board, March 16th. Elmville BIA, March 18th. Heritage Advisory Committee, March 23rd. Agriculture Advisory Committee, March 25th. Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee on April 15th, all 2021. Those in favor? Is carried. Correspondence item, there are no items. Action report. Option item 7.1. Provincial consultation strengthening the municipal codes of conduct. Can I get a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. I'll turn it over to Clerk Ainsworth to just expand upon the report that was written on this, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to council. The province of Ontario advised that they would be conducting consultation to seek input on ways to increase accountability of council members. Now, this 90-day consultation opened on April 14th, and it includes an online survey that is available to members of council, municipal staff, as well as members of the public. It's a shorter survey, 4 questions, and they are also seeking official comments from the various municipalities across the province. Once the consultation was launched, notice was also provided that a town hall session would be conducted for Central Ontario on May 18th. But they are seeking that only one member of council from each municipality be appointed to attend that session and provide comments on behalf of the municipality. Now, participation in this town hall consultation is not mandatory. It's just provided to those municipalities who wish to participate. So if council does wish to participate in this, notice has to be provided to the province for registration tomorrow. So that's the deadline. And should council not wish to provide or appoint a member to that town hall, then that would be decided tonight as well. So as you see in the report, staff have put together draft responses to questions 1 and 4 based on the information that was provided through a delegation at the Roma conference back in January. Now, where we are seeking council's input is regarding questions 2 and 4. the questions that are being asked are in regards to increased sanctions or penalties for contraventions to codes of conduct. Staff didn't feel it was appropriate to provide any insight on these, as it could be quite personal in nature. Everybody has their own thoughts and opinions regarding what additional measures could be put in place. So question 2 actually has a list that would be checked off to advise what additional areas they would like to see. There's also an area to input text. So if there are additional penalties that council wish to propose, there is an area to put that in. Question 3 is similar in nature. It asks, under what circumstances do you believe additional or stronger penalties for violating of code of conduct would be appropriate? So as I mentioned, staff are seeking council's comments should they wish to provide official comments on all of the questions. Also, it might be appropriate to only answer part of the questions if that's the way council wishes to proceed. So I'll guide council through the discussion so that maybe we can go question by question just to get further thoughts and comments from council. Now, any of the comments that are submitted would need to be approved by motion tonight.
Now, so Clerk Ainsworth, just for clarification, so basically we have to determine if council can come to agreement on questions 1 to 4, but probably 2 and 3 as being the ones most discussed. And if so, the township would put this forward as council's basically unanimous opinion with respect to those questions 2 and 3. That would be through the representative, whoever that is going to be in this town hall. Is that?
That's correct. And also whatever comments are approved by council, I would also submit that on behalf of the township through the online portal.
And if there wasn't unanimity pretty much amongst council with respect to questions 2 and 3, then what would happen?
If there would be a majority vote for the final motion, then that would pass. It would be up to council to decide whether they wanted to seek unanimous approval on it. And if so, it would just be simply voting down the motion or amending the motion to remove the fact that official township comments would be submitted and removing the piece about appointing a member to the town hall and simply just receiving the report.
And of course, the availability for each councillor to have input through the survey and through other comments exists, or whether there's a council submission or not, correct?
Correct. And yes, we would urge all members of council to provide their own submissions through the survey portal.
Okay, should we deal with the township representative first so that that's established?
Yes, that it would be appropriate to deal with that item first.
So who would be interested to be the representative in this town hall? Councillor Cabral?
Sorry, Mayor Allen. It sounded to me like it was not a mandatory thing, so I just wanted to clarify that. Is that what?
A mandatory? No, it's not mandatory to have a representative or to even participate in the town hall, is my understanding. Is that correct, Clerk?
Yes, that's correct.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Marilyn. No, it was just my intention to express interest in attending on behalf of the municipality should we come to an official statement.
Okay. Anybody else have an interest? Councillor Ma?
Thank you, Marilyn. Just a question. Appoint a council member or a staff member?
It's a council member.
Thanks.
Other questions, comments? Clerk Ainsworth, and then Councillor Cabral.
Thank you. And just further on that, if council does decide to appoint a member, I would provide a written statement with all of the points that are approved by council and provide guidance to the member who is appointed to this town hall so that they're aware of exactly what comments are approved by council.
And can you also, Clerk Ainsworth, clarify staff input with respect to this?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just seeking clarification, do you mean staff submitting their own surveys?
Yes.
Or, yes. So yes, staff are urged to submit their own thoughts and comments through the survey portal. Tomorrow, I will be sending an email out to all staff and advising them of this survey, the deadlines, and how to participate.
Okay. Councillor Cabral.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Allen. The date, do you have, I think it was marked on here, but when we're going to be doing the second part, or do you want me to wait until we're finished doing this? I had a question.
Well, let's get the representative first, and then we'll move into the second part. Did you have your card up, Councillor Hannah?
Thank you. I didn't see anybody else putting their hand up. I don't like to volunteer for it, but I take this pretty serious. And as you probably recall, I was the one that brought this forward by asking for yourself and the deputy mayor to bring it forward to meeting with the minister. So I have strong opinions on this. I would like to see somebody come forward and make the deputy or be involved in the townhouse meeting. Sorry. I realize that it would be just to advance the items we agree on tonight, so that wouldn't be a problem. But if nobody else is interested in doing it, I would volunteer.
Well, Deputy Mayor Coughlin has expressed an interest. You're expressing an interest as well, Councillor Hannah?
Well, as I say, if nobody else wants to do it, I would do it. I didn't know that Deputy Mayor had volunteered.
Okay. Yes, she just had mentioned that earlier. I guess you missed that in there.
Yes, I did.
Yep. Councillor Ritchie.
Yes, Mayor Allen, I would nominate Councillor Hannah there to, he seems to be quite involved with this, so has a lot of experience in the background of law. I think he's the perfect fit. I would nominate him if he would like to stand for the position. Thank you.
Well, okay, I don't think this is a nomination situation, but anybody else interested in this potentially? Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Marilyn. If Councillor Hannah does want to attend, that's completely fine. It's just to represent the municipality, so there'd be a statement approved, so it's not an issue to me.
Okay, good. Councillor Hannah it is. All right, Clerk Ainsworth, go ahead then with the next part.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So in review of the report, we'll go through question 1, which I've provided a draft response to. Just higher level, not going through all of the details. Council had expressed a desire to request that the province create a standard code of conduct that all municipalities in Ontario would be required to adhere to, as well as an overarching governing body, same as we would see with the Ombudsman's Office or the Office of the Privacy and Commissioner of Ontario. Those are the statements that are made in response to question 1. Are there any additional comments that council would like to see included as part of the submission for question 1?
Councillor Hannah?
Thank you. When I added some of these comments through the clerk to be generated, I'm really, my strongest feeling, of course, I think it's well written. Not because I had input, sorry, but I just really like the first paragraph. I think that integrity commissioners need to be held accountable. I believe that any other policing body, whatever, there's always rules and guidelines and so on to make sure they conduct themselves appropriately. And that's what's missing, I believe, in this whole process. And also, I believe that it's important to have one code of conduct province-wide generated and written and provided by the province. So I support everything that's in one. I'm just pointing it out in case others feel that maybe there needs to be stronger wording to deal with the conduct of integrity commissioners.
I too think it is well written. I think this town hall will flesh out more points, which Councillor Hannah will be able to consider and bring back to council. So why don't we move on to question 2?
Now, question 2 is requesting feedback on additional reprimands or penalties should somebody be in violation of a code of conduct. Now, the province, through their survey, give a list of items that any or all of them could be checked off. There's also going to be an area to input text if there are additional reprimands or penalties that council would like to see considered. So we'll be going through the list to see which ones council would like to include in their submission. So the first one is increased financial penalties to encourage compliance. Next, suspension for certain violations, removal from office in certain circumstances, better training and standards for integrity commissioners. There's also an option for prefer not to say, and then again, the option for inputting additional text.
So
now, I think, my apologies, go ahead.
Sorry, Clerk Ainsworth. Councillor Cabral has a comment, and but were you finished saying sort of your preamble to the question?
The only thing I was going to add was that I think if we get comments from councils on which items you'd like to see removed, and then those will not be checked off during the when I complete the survey submission.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. The only comment I have with respect to this is it's difficult, I think, for us to consider what they're asking us here in view that there's no standard for integrity commissioners and there's no policy in place that keeps them in check. So we're at the other extreme where you have a particular integrity commissioner might be up here and another one on the same item might be down there. So I just, for me, I would have difficulty doing this unless the provincial government was going to put in place kind of like the Ombudsman's office and a standard for the integrity commissioners too, and also establish standards and thresholds that would need to be achieved so that if a member of council were in fact in violation of something, it would not necessarily be open just to the integrity commissioner's perception and observations. There would be some level of a standard. So for most of these here, I wouldn't necessarily be in favor of changing them.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And yeah, it is very difficult for council to kind of have a concise idea, group idea of what would be appropriate in this case. I really do feel that the responses to question 1 and 4 do encompass all of those types of comments. And I might suggest that the answer to this one as an official township comment be prefer not to say.
Oh.
Okay. Councillor Hannah.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Just going back to the clerk's first suggestion that we go through the ones that we suggest may not be appropriate. Increased financial penalties, I don't know if we need to have that one, but I certainly wouldn't support having suspension for violations. If you suspend a member of council, you're impacting the people they represent. So I would suggest that suspending a member of council is something we should remove. I do agree with the one that says remove from office in certain circumstances. I think convictions of serious criminal offenses or continued bad behavior or repeating of code of conduct offenses should be something. If a person's conduct can't be altered, then maybe they need to be removed from the position. That's my position on the ones that we should deal with. Better training and standards for integrity commissioners, absolutely. Like Councillor Cabell said, that's the whole issue at times. Anyway, and the last one, it says, have other recommendations, area of input. My experience with dealing in these type of things, even though you might answer a question previously, when it comes to here, they'll look at number 2 and say, oh, well, Springwater didn't say anything. I would suggest that the first paragraph in question number 1 be repeated again here. So we do have another recommendation, and that's the paragraph 1 of question number 1.
Okay, just before going to Councillor Cabral and Deputy Mayor Coughlin, the link to the AMO recommendations in the report was interesting to read. If you read the wording carefully under these 3 recommendations that the AMO board came up with. So first one was suspension, but it said in defined circumstances that could negatively impact public health and safety. So it just wasn't just suspension. The next was removal from office, and it's not by an integrity commissioner, it's by a member of a judiciary on the recommendation of an integrity commissioner where a report has found serious and or repeated breaches of codes of conduct. So there were definite conditions and a definite independent body that they recommended potentially doing that action. And then the better training and standards for the integrity commissioners to improve capacity and consistency of decision-making across the province. So I thought those were good points that the AMO board came up with for consideration. Councillor Cabral and then Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Actually, almost in lines with what your comment just was, that particular one that deals with suspension under defined circumstances. You know, as soon as they put that in there, it almost seems like it's okay, but unless someone knows what the defined circumstances are, then suspension really, it should, you know, are you in favor of suspension? Yeah, well, give us the defined circumstances you're talking about, and then I can agree with you. As far as the judicial review aspect of it is concerned, I agree with that, but there also has to be a mechanism in place for an appeal, which there currently doesn't exist. There's no appeal process for the integrity commissioner's findings. So if they're going to have a judicial review based on an integrity commissioner's findings of a breach of the code, then there should also be a mechanism in place for someone to review what an integrity commissioner has come to. And this goes all the way back to setting a bit of a standard here where you can have, and it would probably be based on a threshold of what the punishment is too, but there should be an appeal mechanism in there as well. So as much as I like filling out the surveys, I'm very, very suspicious of the way some of them are worded, because you really want to know what you're stepping into. And if we say, yes, suspension's a good idea, well, tell us what the defined circumstances are before you want us to answer that particular question. Because if it's for 3 minor, you know, unless they broke it down in such a way that 3 minor infractions over a course of 2 years, or if you're there for 2 years and you've been a good boy, does your infraction from 2 years ago disappear and you start over again? Like, this is the kind of thing that the provincial government needs to look at and put it in place. Something that's palatable to everybody, but also fair to everybody.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you. I think that also on Councillor Cabral's points, in the text box, further to Councillor Hannah's request to have the first paragraph, I do like the idea of the appeal mechanism, but also again, on top of that, when it says suspension, it doesn't even say, well, for how long or what the terms of the suspension are, and if there's a person to be put in place for that so that the residents still have access or a voice at the table. So I think that while I understand and appreciate Clerk Ainsworth's opinion of prefer not to say, I think that what I've heard from council tonight on the better training and standards for integrity commissioners is something that is in line with what that is consistent. And then in the text box include the first paragraph and also Councillor Cabral's point to the appeal mechanism in the text box below.
Did you catch that, Clerk Ainsworth?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, Mayor Allen. Just for clarification, from what it sounds, council would like to remove the options except for better training and standards for integrity commissioners, and then add the additional text. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yep.
So repeat what you do for 2 then, please.
Thank you. So response to question 2 would be checking off better training and standards for integrity commissioners, and then adding in the text, adding the first paragraph from question 1, as well as requesting an appeal mechanism.
Councillor Moore and then Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Clerk Ainsworth. Does that still encompass the recommendations by AMO? Are we still going to capture those recommendations also?
Not
Those
according to this, no.
Because I did like their recommendations also. Okay.
Okay, I'll let you think about that. Councillor Cabral and Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. It's a council thing, and I think one part that's key here with better training and standards for integrity commissioners is in part and partial with an appeal process and judicial review. If they do go ahead with suspensions, there should be some oversight, like the Ombudsman's office, that could oversee all the integrity commissioners too, and make sure, kind of like a training package almost, because, they're all interpreting the legislation the way they want to basically present it and deal with it. Whereas with an oversight of some type, an oversight body or whatever, that could also fall in with the appeal process as well as the judicial review. So I'm wondering if including that would be worth it.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Oh, sorry, Mayor Allen. My point was just, sorry, through you to, I guess, Councillor Moore. If there's ones that you feel strongly to have in there, I think that, this is our opportunity to do so, and we're not in a hurry to move on. So if there are ones that you would like to discuss, I think that this is our official statement, and I don't want to see anything left out. So, I mean, that's what we're here for. So don't feel that
It's
you don't.
just at the initial part of discussion of question 2, there were comments made about the first point, suspension and removal from office. And it was thought that repeating part of question 1 and incorporating it additionally in question 2, and then making a reference to the training and standards for the integrity commissioner might capture what we feel in 2. But keep in mind, this is just for input back to the town hall. This isn't a final determination. Councillor Hanna is going to bring back lots of wisdom from the meeting that he's going to attend, and then we'll be able to finalize after that. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. When I did review AMO's recommendations, I think we have captured those 3 points. So I'm feeling comfortable just to move ahead with what we're talking about. That's fine.
Beautiful. Councillor Hanna?
Thank you. And sorry, you broke up when you were speaking, Mayor, so I apologize, but I just want to make sure the paragraph from question 1 will still be there, but we're just repeating it, correct? Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And just to the comment about bringing it back for official comments once the town hall takes place, the motion that's before council tonight is seeking approval of the official township comments through this discussion. So the intent is not for a report to come back seeking further comments, unless that's the way council would like to go.
What I was referring to was that once we hopefully come upon consensus from a council perspective for input this week, and then with respect to Councillor Hanna delivering that at the town hall, I mean, he's going to be coming back with lots of perspective, and we'll be able to review it again at that point in time. Okay, continue, Clerk.
Thank you. So I believe we have the response to question 2 dealt with. Now, question 3, there are no options. It's strictly verbiage that they're looking for as input. So the question is, under what circumstances do you believe additional or stronger penalties for violating a code of conduct would be appropriate? And just seeking council's thoughts or comments on the response to this question.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin, then Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you to council. I think that this question is entirely circumstantial, and there could be an endless amount of different options for us to write down. So I would be satisfied with a generic statement in this point, because we could list many different situations.
Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Along the same ideas as Deputy Mayor, there's no context here. So, you know, I think back to the, I believe it was Aurora, there was a councillor down there that got themselves into quite a bit of hot water. There's also one that's been in the news. Maybe other council members are aware of this particular individual out Ottawa Way. I think there's possibly some investigation as to criminal charges. So once again, it's in with the context, and I think it plays right back into some kind of judicial review. Is if there was a mechanism for a judicial review, and you know, let someone who's a lot more learned than us and even those that are integrity commissioners make the final call on something like that.
Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I agree with both Deputy Mayor and Councillor Cabral. Can we just remove question 3, or do we have to have a like a blank statement, unless we just remove it?
I think Clerk Ainsworth has a suggestion with respect to generalizing an answer for question 3.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. I am drafting something, like you mentioned, a general statement, but to Councillor Chapman's point, there does not need to be an answer for question 3 if council does not want to have a submission, but I can draft a general statement if that's what council wishes.
Please take a moment, then you can read that to us, and in the meantime, I'll go to Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you. And would it be, sorry, I'd like to put forward a suggestion that we say, due to the ambiguous nature of this question, so that we point out that we would love to answer the questions and we would like to put the time and energy into it, but when they ask questions that are ambiguous in this way, I would like for the opportunity to say, due to the ambiguous nature of this question, and move forward from there.
Okay, duly noted. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a question, actually. I don't know if anybody can answer it, but I know that the provincial government is the one that's putting this together, but it sounds to me like AMO is the one who's making all of these recommendations. So I'm wondering how they correlate, why the province wouldn't have just put these out themselves directly, but it appears it's been vetted by AMO coming to us now for our input. And like, I'll be honest with you, the questions that they're asking, I wouldn't be buying a car from them, that's for sure.
First of all, Councillor Cabral, it's AMO. AMO sounds like a rifle organization down in the States. A gun club down in the States.
It's my Elmville accent.
Well, AMO comments on all these things as we get lots of emails. They have board members who are municipal politicians who give us guidance in municipal issues. One thing I wanted to, well, the clerk is finalizing the proposed wording. One thing that came up in county that I'm going to give Councillor Hanna more detail on was the Collingwood judicial inquiry. I don't know whether you read about that in the press, but we spent quite a bit of time at County Council. Mayor Saunderson and Deputy Mayor Hull came forward to try to get county support for, and this relates to code of conduct and integrity commissioners and code of conduct. The Collingwood Judicial Inquiry examined two major transactions that the town of Collingwood engaged in under the leadership of its 2010 to 2014 municipal council. The sale of 50% of the town's electric utility and the construction of a number of recreation facilities were at issue. The then mayor's brother earned in excess of $1 million in success fees with respect to these items. The Collingwood Judicial Inquiry concluded that, quote, undisclosed conflicts, unfair procurements, and lack of transparency stained both transactions, leading to fair and troubling concerns for the public. So this study, which is 900 pages, and Justice Morocco led the study, resulted in 306 recommendations. And so the in-house legal department for the county was tasked with going through that and seeing whether it could be whittled down to have those that applied potentially to municipalities. And so 19 of those were whittled down from the 306. And there was a motion that was just recently passed at County Council, whereas Collingwood Judicial Inquiry was asked to examine two major transactions that the town of Collingwood engaged in under the leadership of the 210 to 214 Municipal Council, whereas Commissioner Associate Chief Justice Frank Morocco released his report called Transparency and Public Trust, report of the Collingwood Judicial Inquiry on November 2020, containing his findings and recommendations. And whereas a number of the 306 recommendations call for the province of Ontario to make changes to the municipal legislative framework, be it resolved that County Council support in principle Collingwood's efforts to advocate for the province of Ontario to make review and or commence consultations with the municipalities of Ontario and other stakeholder groups such as the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, to make changes to the municipal legislative framework, including but not limited to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act pursuant to the recommendations of Morocco and his report. So I will send this to Councillor Hannah, the county report plus the 19 recommendations. And I say all of this because these are something that we're going to be hearing from the county recommendations that maybe the municipality should consider incorporating into their code of conduct. And the items you're asking, well, what relate to? These recommendations relate to such matters as increased financial disclosure by councillors, creating increased clarity surrounding real versus potential conflicts and between pecuniary interest versus indirect pecuniary interest versus non-pecuniary interest. You try saying that 3 times in a sentence. And then legislating the concept of disqualifying versus non-disqualifying disclosures. So that gave you enough time, Clerk Ainsworth?
It did. Perfect timing. Thank you. I'll read what I have drafted, and if there are any changes, please let me know. Council is not able to provide direct feedback due to the general nature of the question being posed. Additional and stronger penalties for contraventions of a code of conduct should be based on individual circumstances and not generalized. But the township feels that whatever penalties are established, that an appeal mechanism be created.
Okay, that sound good? We're not voting, but yes, yes, and yes. Okay. By the way, that judicial review cost Collingwood $8 million. Okay, question 4, Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So question 4, there is a draft response included in the report. Are there any additional comments that council would like to see as part of this question?
It's basically oversight, looking for an oversight body and a uniform code, right?
Yes, that's correct.
We've been over that ground. Okay, so Do we have then I think we're good with that one. So I'll
Yes,
let you
Mayor
read
Allen.
I'll let you read the motion then, Clerk Ainsworth, please.
Thank you. That the report from the clerk regarding provincial consultation, strengthen municipal codes of conduct dated May 5th, 2021 be received, and that council hereby appoint Councillor Hannah as the township representative for the town hall being held on May 18th, 2021 to provide feedback as approved by council at the May 5th, 2021 regular meeting, and that council hereby direct staff to submit official township comments as outlined in the report dated May 5th, 2021, with the addition of the following. Response to question 2, checking off better training and standards for integrity commissioners, and adding the first paragraph from question 1, as well as to request an appeal mechanism. Response to question 3, council is not able to provide direct feedback due to the general nature of the question being posed. Additional and stronger penalties for contraventions of a code of conduct should be based on individual circumstances and not generalized, but the township feels that whatever penalties are established, that an appeal mechanism be created, and the portion for additional comments to be removed as everything has been integrated in the motion above.
Good. Thank you for doing that, Clerk Ainsworth. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, that's good. All right. Thank you again, Clerk Ainsworth, and councillors. 8.1 resolution action reports. We have 8.2 through to 8.8, which was added today. Who would like to ask questions or pull items? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. 8.4.
Question or pull?
I think you should pull it. We might have further dialogue on it.
Okay. What else? Okay, a mover and seconder for getting this on the floor then, please. Councillor Moore, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, that the action reports 8.2 through 8.8 be received and that the recommendations contained therein be approved. 8.2 records retention bylaw update. 8.3 beaver trapper services agreement. 8.5 federal gas tax top-up funding, additional roads. 8.6 telecommunications tower proposal. 8.7 update temporary sales office model home agreement 1757704 Ontario Inc. and 8.8 Patterson Steel reconstruction water main with the exception of 8.4 which will be dealt with separately. All those in favor? That is carried. Mover and seconder to get 8.4 on the floor. Councillor Cabral, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Go ahead, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I had some questions about this. I couldn't find this address on the GIS for the county. And when I was looking at the map, I wasn't really sure exactly what I was looking at there. And I had questions about the letters of opinion, whether they were produced by the purchaser or whether they were sought out from a township in-house. But I do have also a question with respect to the property itself, because from the map, I can't tell. I think this is on the south side of Orr Lake Road, opposite the lake, just going by the numbers. So I wanted to know from the map here where that red block is. I think that's the piece that they're talking about severing off and selling to this individual. But I'm curious to know, there's an outline to the left and right of that, and also a piece at the back of it that seems to be the piece that might be being retained by townships. So I really need to wrap my head around what that is, if it's a road allowance, how far it goes, and if we're going to be giving this fella here this chunk of property, are we going to be giving property to all the other people who live along that road allowance too? So I got a number of questions here regarding whether or not this is something that we should be doing.
Okay, Clerk Ainsworth authored the report. I'll turn to her.
Thank you. So I'll go through your questions one by one. So first, I've got it pulled up on Simcoe County mapping. So let me just see.
Yeah, I went on GIS, but I couldn't see that number.
Okay, let me just get my
Although you've got it right there.
Screen shared. There you go. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So where this red dot is, that is where the property that is currently owned by the requester. Does this provide you a better idea of where it is?
Yes.
Okay. So immediately south to it, the red blocked off square in the report is the piece that they would like to purchase. So if you just bear with me one moment, I will share another screen and it will give you an idea of how the lots are separated. My apologies, I found this after the report was created, but it'll give you a better idea. So here, this is the lot that is currently owned. And this outlined in yellow is the portion that the requester would like to purchase. This strip at the bottom, which is outlined as Part 8, is actually where there's a gas main. So there's an end bridge easement. So Part 8 would be retained by the municipality. Now, on Simcoe County mapping, the unopened road allowance shows as one portion of land, but this reference plan, it has been chunked out to align with the properties to the north. Now, that was done by the township back in 2000. And the intent was to sell all of those smaller portions to the abutting landowners to the north. Unfortunately, that never took place. And through my research, I wasn't able to find out why that didn't take place. So if this request is supported by council, once it's finalized, I would like to seek direction from council to potentially seek the same thing from the other landowners, if that's something council would like to pursue. Does that answer your questions?
Yeah, for the most part, it does. Thank you very much. It still makes me wonder about the rest of those lots. I just saw it as one continuous piece and questioned whether or not the others. If there was a specific reason why council at some point in time didn't want to sell the property, I mean, that would make a lot of sense to me. But based on what you've just told me, if we're going to be selling that particular piece to that landowner, I think it does make sense to probably look at, there's no point holding on to the rest of it either. So I agree with you on that. But I would like to know if there was a specific reason why township didn't sell it way back when, but it doesn't seem like there was any rhyme or reason as to why. So I leave myself.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. Yes, you're correct. Unfortunately, I was unable to locate that information. And I did think of another, you had a question regarding the letters of opinion. Yes. So our process is that we ask the requesters to attain those from certified real estate agents. That's what happens on smaller pieces of property. If it is a larger parcel of property and has a greater value, then we do require an actual land appraisal. But these smaller ones where the value is not as high, then we allow for letters of opinion, which is part of our land sale policy. Because unfortunately, an appraisal is quite expensive. They're close to $2,000, and it just doesn't seem appropriate to ask a requester to pay that much for such a low valued piece of land.
Right. I just want to throw a wrench into that. But what if there was someone out there that wanted to buy the entire piece?
Yeah,
they would then have access onto the roadway there, Mayor Allen, and that would that not be a residential, capable of being a residential lot?
I think Deputy Mayor Calling was just going to address that point. So good point. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you, Councillor Cabral is reading my mind this evening. And thank you to Clerk Ainsworth and Director Spagnell for entertaining these questions I had earlier. And I do agree that the municipality should be taking a look at our evaluation of our land as a whole before we continue to make decisions on selling open road allowances or appeasing one individual member. While as I would like to help the individual out and in this circumstance, I do believe that those parcels are more of a value to the whole of Springwater, understanding that, you know, we have proposals coming forward for lots all the time because everybody wants to live in Springwater. So if there is a value to that property as one rather than as 5 smaller lots, I think that it's in our best interest to look at our land evaluation as a whole before we continue to make decisions moving forward. Also, the reason for why the resident was purchasing that back property, is it in order to build a dwelling to a certain size, or do we understand why the request has come forward at this time?
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you. Yes, I was advised by the requester that they would like to build a certain size home and require a bit more land to be able to accommodate that.
But certainly they could build a home that they would like on the existing lot that they have a home plus the lot that they own beside, right? So they don't need that extra square in the back to build a home, I would imagine. But I would be interested in Director Spagnell, and if you pull up the second last map or the last map, please, Clerk Ainsworth, how possible would it be to build a residence on all of those pieces of land combined? I guess with the changing rules about size of lot or the flexibility that we're experiencing.
Out to the road.
Director Spagnell?
Thank you, Marilyn. Yeah, I mean, from a lot area perspective and a lot width perspective, there probably is the potential there to site a house on the property to go in to have a residential lot. What planning staff would have to do is match that against the zone provisions that would apply. In this general area, we've got estate residential zone provisions. We've got residential conversion zone provisions. So there's different setbacks that get applied to residential dwellings. But from an area standpoint and not getting into the specifics as to what could be supported from a septic perspective, the potential would be there for a residential lot if it was all kept as one.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. And through you, I think that understanding that this is an additional 6 parts here. If you go back to the county of Simcoe mapping, and you will see, I mean, Orr Lake in itself is an interesting area for lot sizes and configurations, and essentially the property owned by the township right now, which is, to my knowledge, 1 property, has not been severed into 6 to be conveyed at this point. And I think it's of more value to the residents as 1 than being sold off to the individual properties or conveyed to the individual properties at this time.
Clerk Ainsworth, before I go to Councillor Cabral, that map you just had there, so is it accurate to, can you flip that back up, the one you just put on, please? Is it accurate to say there are 1, 2, 3 dwellings presently there on that whole 1, 2, 3? Yeah, there's 1, 2, only looks like 2 in that picture. One to 3 dwellings, eh?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yes, this dwelling here just backs onto the Enbridge easement. It doesn't have the portion, but there are only 2 homes that back onto that.
And can you scroll up on that map a little bit, please? Scroll up on that to show right out to the street for the pieces at the back. Yeah, so yeah, you could build
Sure you could.
You could sell that as a lot and build a residence. Councillor Cabral?
Just muted myself. Thank you, Marilyn. Just when the clerk had her other one on there, I was looking at the lot with the house with the white roof. If you look at the width of that lot, because these are lots, I guess, that are separate, but no one's built on them. Maybe they own them all. Certainly wide enough in the back, but just doing rough math based on the parcels that were in the back there at $5,000 a pop, that's only worth $35,000. But I can assure council, I think anybody would be more than prepared to pay a couple of $100,000 for that same piece of property as a whole.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Marilyn. And in speaking with Clerk Ainsworth, staff has been working or drafting the land appraisal, or sorry, the land evaluation for council to consider. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to, I don't know whether we would defer this until further time, or if Director Spagnol, or sorry, if they're looking for a decision on this specific land transfer, because to myself, I think that it's, it's more about what the benefit to the entire municipality. So I think that we need to have that appraisal in order to make that decision.
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you. So the requester is waiting on this decision to move forward with submitting what he needs to with the planning department and the building department to build his home. Should council not support this request, the land in question would be included in the surplus land inventory for council to consider when it does come forward. It would be up to council if you would like to defer this request totally and not provide an absolute no to the requester pending the results of the surplus land inventory. It would be up to council on how you would like to move forward with that.
Thank you. Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'd be of a mind to defer it and find out from staff what the valuation would be and sell it as a whole parcel. And if the individual was still interested in buying the whole parcel, then they would be able to. However, the other thing I would like to do too, or at least suggest, is that moving forward, letters of opinion for property values should be generated by township going forward. Not to suggest that a purchaser wouldn't get appropriate letters of opinion from realtors, but I really think if the township's the one that's going to be selling the property, those letters of opinion should be sought out and provided to township. That's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Councillor Cabral. And I do have those same feelings. One of my projects over the next couple of months is to review and update the actual land sale policy. The one we have is quite outdated. So that is something that will be coming forward to council, hopefully within the month of July at the first meeting for council's consideration. And it would take into consideration those comments for sure.
So given the situation, Clerk Ainsworth, is it most practical to either vote or for or against this, or to defer this, given that the applicant wants to move forward with a purchase or with a rebuild? Go ahead, Clerk.
Thank you. If council's intention is to keep it as one lot, get it appraised and sell it, I don't think it would be appropriate to offer it to this requester. Specifically, those types of sales should be open and available to anybody, accessible to anybody. There's also larger considerations when it comes to this. As I mentioned earlier, a land appraisal is around $2,000. It does take some time, especially with the market that we have right now. Land appraisers are very, very busy. It does take a long time to get that process undertaken. So I think that this should be considered as part of the surplus land inventory that will be coming forward. There will be quite a few things that we will be seeking council's consideration on, not just for this lot, but just lots in general throughout the township. on whether council does want to pursue selling this inventory and moving forward with getting appraisals for all of the lots, sale processes and whatnot. It's quite a large undertaking. So I would suggest that that be kept separate. And if council doesn't want to move forward with this request, staff would include it in the land sale or the surplus land inventory.
Okay, Councilor Ritchie.
Yes, Mary Ellen, through to Director Spagnol. To like the rest of the property, like that back end, if it was sold to the requester, could you still move ahead and sell the rest of the property and be able to put a house on it? Because the back 50 feet, is it going to make any difference? That's my question, which I don't think it is. If there's sufficient space for the well and the septic, which we've seen there from the pictures, then I don't see why you couldn't look after the requester with what he's asking and still go ahead and get the rest of the piece appraised and move forward with a sale of it separately. So my question, I'd like the Director of Planning to tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Director Spagnol.
Thank you, Marilyn. Through you to Councilor Ritchie. Yeah, I mean, hypothetically speaking, if that portion was to be severed and conveyed to the requester, there would appear to be enough land area and whatnot to provide for setbacks and things of that nature. Septic size and well location would all have to be considered and factored into that consideration. The only thing that I would mention is that once this portion of that lot is sold off, the prospect or the potential for other residents to want to purchase and do the same thing might open up.
Yeah.
Which I think, is something that council should probably be cognizant of.
Yeah.
The other thing, just from a land conveyance standpoint and from a process standpoint, we've all been involved in, considerations and discussions about the impacts of residential lots to surrounding areas, existing residential lots and whatnot. And I think that when the municipality goes and start taking a look at possibly severing off lots for sale, the same type of consideration should be put in place for some form of a notification to surrounding residents to determine whether or not there is a perceived impact on those residents.
Yeah.
To my mind, I mean, when council takes the role and says, okay, they want to sever off the lot, there should be those same considerations that would go into, say, a severance application or whatnot, just because there is the perception and the potential impact on surrounding property owners.
Yeah, true.
Okay, Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. I was just thinking, if we decided to go ahead with this and they build something, they can only access that part from the main vacant lot, not through the road allowance. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. Just my last point too. I think in this circumstance, the resident to the, I believe would be east, his property also would abut back onto this. So to me, I feel like this should be more of a transparent process. It should go into consideration of how it would affect the neighboring properties. And I would like to see either we can give a solid no at this point, or we can look into whether or not we still have a viable lot through the land evaluation. But at this time, it's not something I could support, because if that person with the property in the first end of it on the roundabout there comes forward to ask for the same thing, we've just shot ourselves in the foot with a possible sale of the lot. So at this time, I'm not able to support the request.
Yep. Okay, last comment, Councillor Cabral.
No, I was just going to say, Mayor Allen, that I don't think there was any cost in putting this before council. It's not an application or anything that was made, so they're welcome to make another application at a later date if things don't work out the way council maybe considers.
Okay, so we have a mover and seconder that the report from clerk regarding the request for the purchase of land adjacent to 137 South Ore Lake Road, Part 7 of Plan 51R 29581 dated May 5, 2021 be received, that council direct staff to issue a notice of proposed land sale in the Springwater link, and send a copy of the notice to the abutting landowners, and that the subsequent report to be provided to council over the 30-day notice period has lapsed, seeking final approval of the sale of Part 7 of Plan 51R 29581. So if you're voting for this, you're voting for selling this land per the report. If you're voting against it, then we're voting to keep the land for the future possibilities by the township. Okay, we got that? So all those in favor? All those opposed? That is defeated. Thank you. Okay. Information reports 9.1. Mover and seconder, get this on the floor, please. Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Ma, there are 3 items. These are information reports. Any questions with respect to these? Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Marilyn. My computer's not pulling up, but the tennis courts, Elmdale tennis courts, it's the third one.
That's the first one.
Oh, the first one then.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, okay. Now, these are information reports, so Clerk Ainsworth, we can just discuss them as we go through, right?
Yes, correct, Mayor Allen.
Go ahead then, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Marilyn. And as it stands right now, it says to be received. However, I would like to see CAO Schmidt or staff anyway, reach out to the Agricultural Society to find out what their purpose and intent is, or what their plan is moving forward with that property. Although it's not owned by the municipality, it is an integral part of the community of Elmdale. And I'm just curious as to if they have plans recreationally or moving forward, just to have an idea so that if there is potential for partnerships moving forward, just to get an idea of what the intent is with that.
Okay, Coordinator Dean, and then maybe go to Director Spagnell or CAO Schmidt with respect to strategy going forward in communicating with them. Go ahead, Coordinator Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through to you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Just to respond to your inquiry about reaching out to the Floss Agricultural Society, staff have reached out to the Agricultural Society, and we'll be having a meeting with the executive of the Agricultural Society in the middle of May, just to discuss long-term visioning for that property and for Floss Agricultural Society.
Okay, and you'll be at that, Coordinator Dean. CAO Schmidt, will you be at that meeting? Yep. Go ahead, CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just further to Coordinator Dean's comments. So staff did, Coordinator Dean and Manager Anderson and I did have a chat earlier this week about this, and made the decision, to be honest, to reach out to the Floss Ag Society to have a conversation, because of the fact that, you know, as members of council, you're aware that the Rec Master Plan does contemplate a community park in Elmville somewhere. And so we've had conversations about, you know, land and not a lot of land being available for a community park. So it would make sense to have a conversation with the Floss Ag Society before coming back to council later this year with a recommendation to relocate and or relocate the tennis courts and or to have a partnership or enhanced partnership with the Floss Ag Society for that property. So we do want to have that conversation and see whether or not there's any opportunity for future partnerships for that property that they own, and then hopefully report back to council with an update.
Yeah, I would say it's a pretty important meeting and outcome potentially. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess I'm just going to express my disappointment more than anything else, but it's through no fault of council's. I don't think COVID-19 came along. I actually did sit in with on a couple of meetings with the Ag Society with respect to the tennis courts after council approved it. This is going back to 2019. Also with a former Director of Public Works, Mr. Belfry. And at that time, that seemed to iron a few things out. But I guess as things have dragged on, they've just become a little bit disillusioned with the process and decided that they wanted to have the tennis courts removed and everything put back the way it was. But to the best of my knowledge, they don't have anything other than remediating the property to its original state in mind. So I just thought I'd share that with council.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other questions on 2 or 3? Yes, Councillor Ritchie.
I wanted to speak to number 3, please.
Okay. Can we, okay, we'll look at number 3, Elmvale Settlement Expansion, consideration Bayfield Street, South Commercial Options. Let us start with going to Director Spagnell and see whether there is any additionally like to add to the report with respect to this.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I think the report speaks for itself in that the motion that was brought before council brings questions related to the Elmvale settlement expansion. It raises questions about providing for commercial development along the southern portion of Bayfield Street. And essentially the avenue, from staff's perspective to provide those comments would be through the county's municipal comprehensive review process, specifically for the settlement area expansion. The rationale for that is that the county is the approval authority for expansions to settlement areas. And the county is going through its municipal comprehensive review as we speak. As part of my verbal update to council, I was going to note that the county's public meeting for its MCR review is scheduled to take place on June 8th at 10 a.m. in the morning. And it's through that process that staff will be preparing a report to council to bring forward information that was arrived at through the township's official plan review, but also to canvass council for any comments that council would like to see vetted through and funneled towards the county process. In that respect, from where staff was sitting, the same tests for settlement area expansion apply now as when the requests were brought forward in the past. So in general terms, it's of staff's opinion based on the recommendations as part of the official plan review that justification for a settlement area expansion would be extremely difficult to achieve at this point in time. With respect to the Bayfield Street corridor question, the 3 options that were itemized by staff was that the option would be that there either be the consideration of private applications as per the resolutions provided by council and previous councils. The other option would be that we revisit our official plan review discussion paper to try to take a look as to whether or not that is appropriate to consider commercial uses. And then the last option would be, again, to really field these questions or status quo and keep things maintained as per the Greenbelt policies. So I think for the settlement area expansion, the option is definitely within council's purview to go and provide comments to the county through the MCR process. And really from an official plan review standpoint, the recommendations were to leave the Greenbelt as is. That's where staff would be sitting on that. But again, we're in council's hands and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Mayor Allen, that motion was brought forward, passed by the majority of council to seek ways. I think that is the driving mechanism for staff to go forward to add that and speak about it in the municipal comprehensive review with the county, as to what we can do to move forward, to start the ball rolling in certain areas along down to the 8th concession. Maybe not all of it, but certain areas, but at least get the ball started. That there was support from this council to look at ways to move that forward. So I think that would be, I would look forward to that, the report coming back, but I would like that to be, go to the county again under that municipal comprehensive review. There was support from this council to move forward in some form of a settlement boundary expansion.
Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to speak to the portion with reference to the South Bayfield Street corridor. And as the Director of Planning pointed out, there was 2 options that council could consider. And I think in order to be able to help council that wasn't around for the last 11 or 10 years, just a quick history. In April the 23rd, 2012, Sadlin came forward to council with his planner, and they wanted to build a new auto dealership in Springwater Township at north of where his current one is. That wasn't able to take place. There was a motion to that effect, but anyway, and then again, we heard from Mr. Sadlin, I'm going to say it was probably 2016, to do with building a big convention center. And then that came back in, I think, about 2018 again, we heard from it again. And staff did try to come up with solutions at that time. There was one solution that would be a small, I can't remember, I think it might have been a trucking thing that might have been able to be approved. It was for consideration anyway, and that didn't take place. And I believe it would be 2020, we heard from Pharmacare, who wanted to build on the other side of Bayfield Street, just outside the Barrie city limits again. And they wanted to build a end-of-life facility there with about 145 beds. And I think Councillor Moore could confirm that the total, but I believe that's what it was. But none of those things would happen. And when that came forward, Councillor Moore and I had met with the people that were interested in doing so. We suggested, or we agreed that they should do a deputation to council. And then an hour before they're doing the deputation to council, I get a phone call from one of the people involved suggesting that they were going to cancel the deputation because they were told that staff weren't going to support their going forward. And I appreciate that staff were probably being honest and saying that it's not allowable or under the certain regulations and conditions, and maybe that's where they got that impression. I don't know how the conversation took place, but I only know what I heard. So what I'm just suggesting is, and if you read as the director has put in here, the motion that McConkey and I advanced back in when the heck was it here? In April 2015. That was after a motion that came forward. And the motion that came forward at that time was by Rick Webster. Where is it here? I'll find it eventually. Appreciate your patience, but I think it's important. So the back in 2013, it was resolution 104, moved by Webster, seconded by McLean, that the report dated July the 22nd, 2013, prepared by Planscape on behalf of the Township of Springwater and submitted by the Manager of Planning regarding the Green Belt Policy Review be received, and that Township staff initiate discussions with the City of Barrie regarding servicing options for development of lands within the County Road 93, St. Vincent Street, Bayfield Street North corridors as identified in the report, and Township staff initiate discussions with the County of Simcoe regarding access options and issues for development of lands for all corridors, and that following those discussions, staff report back to the Planning Committee with further options on considering official plan amendments and development opportunities, and it was carried by council at the time. And then in 2015, we got a report back, and at that time, after getting the report back, you'll see the motion that was put forward by, wherever that is. It was put forward by, oh my gosh, sorry about this, but we got too many computers going on here. And by myself and McConkey, Councillor McConkey at the time, sorry, to maintain the green belt the way it was. And that was the result of the report that came forward in 2015 as a result of that motion that I read. When that report came forward, we had discussions about maintaining the green belt. I still believe that buffer should be maintained. However, the discussion was that we would consider any commercial options that were of benefit to Springwater Township. And if you read that recommendation, it said we would restrict development in the area. It didn't say we prohibit it. And I think that's important. So going forward, I'm suggesting that what we have to do is give staff guidance or support to see what we can do when these business opportunities come forward. As I mentioned, those three, the car dealership, the massive convention center, the pharmacare end of life situation, all those would have been major projects in my view that would have been big tax dollars, development charges, employment opportunities, and benefit to our taxpayers. And without us helping staff or giving staff support in order to go forward to do whatever they need to do when these things come forward, I'm suggesting we need to look for or explore opportunities to come up with positive solutions on how we can try to advance them. I'm not saying we should be advancing all the minor things that might come forward, but major projects, if we're not in position to be able to help staff going forward, we may be missing out on more opportunities. And that's why I added on to Councillor Ritchie's suggestion, asking for staff to provide input or information on how we could deal with these things in the future. So it's up to the rest of council as well. I think council needs to either be on board and support that we need to open up that buffer area on Bayfield Street for major commercial opportunities. And if we don't do it, we'll continue probably to miss out on some major opportunities. And I realize the staff have to work within the guidelines they have, but I think that we as council, we know this is going to be developed sooner or later. So I think we should get on board whenever we can when some of these things come forward. Thank you.
So Councillor Hanna, servicing being the big question, one of the big questions. If we approach Barrie and try to get some sort of interest in servicing the properties that you speak of for the opportunities you speak of, do you really think that they would come up with a servicing agreement to maintain the Springwater boundaries, or would just want to annex that property to assume the benefits?
Well, I would hope that the latter wouldn't be true, but I do recall in the past having this discussion, and we as council at council of the day, I think, made a mistake by suggesting that staff reach out, and it wasn't Director Spagnell, to be clear. He was not involved in this. The staff of the day, who's no longer with us, reached out to Barrie staff, and I heard back from an engineer at Barrie when the response was that they wouldn't be interested, that it should have been council approaching Barrie Council to get it approved. However, I do have a copy of a document from City of Barrie that reads the effect that they're looking for business opportunities in order to do cross-border servicing. So that obviously would be supportive of the idea. To do what you're saying, to have cross-border servicing. And if Barrie has a document to that effect from their council to direct them to do that, I believe that might have opened the door at that time. Whether that would still apply going forward at this time, whether they've changed that policy, I don't know. But I think it should be up to developers when they come forward with these things for them to go to the city and see if the City of Barrie would be interested. I would be surprised, but I'm not surprised quite often, but I would be surprised when the pharmacare wanted to build 145 end-of-life beds at the border of Barrie, that Barrie would not want to support that, given how it would relieve a lot of pressure from RVH. So again, we don't know unless we know what the development and what the project is, whether the City of Barrie would support it or not. But again, I'm just suggesting we need to have our ducks in a row when these things come forward so we can do our best to try to make them happen.
Okay. Director Spagnell, any further comments before I go to Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Mayor Allen, I think just to touch on the recommendation within the discussion papers for the official plan review. It recommends that the Greenbelt policies be upheld. There's a reason for that, and there's a reason why staff, in any pre-consultation, and believe me, we conduct many with respect to properties that are located within the Greenbelt. And the overriding policy from the province essentially says that urban residential development or urban type development, which would include the uses that have been brought forward as part of previous pre-consultations, it directs those types of developments or that development towards settlement areas. So, from a policy context, it's not that staff doesn't want to support them, it's that staff isn't in a position to support them because there's an overriding policy that directs growth towards settlement areas. Now, the report that Councillor Hanna spoke to that was completed by Planscape took a look at various areas along various corridors, different highways or county roads, including the Bayfield Street corridor. And these types of properties exist throughout the township. And essentially, when it was brought back to the table after that report was revisited, the driving opinion, at least from staff's perspective, was that if we've got settlement areas where we've got servicing coming into place, we should be having these uses directed to those areas where we've got our critical mass of development occurring, along with the services there to provide for them in the settlement areas. So that was really the general push behind that. So from the standpoint of, from a policy perspective, really the fact of the matter is that provincial policy doesn't allow for the consideration of urban land uses outside of a settlement area, which is a key policy consideration that goes into every pre-consultation that staff does, and which is one of the reasons why the Greenbelt policy is being recommended through the official plan review to be upheld. So it has been something that has been on the radar for quite some time, and it's because of the immense pressure that township staff gets from the development community. And it's not just for commercial uses, it's for residential uses across the Greenbelt, it's for institutional uses and medical type uses, even closer to RVH over by Highway 93 and Georgian Drive. So this is a higher level consideration, if I may put it that way, where it's provincial policy that would need to provide the flexibility and mechanism to be able to consider development within these areas outside of settlement areas.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I believe the property that Director Spagnell just alluded to, the property that there was a proposal brought forward, I believe it's Springwater Township touches RVH to the east, and there was a township proposal brought forward there. And again, it was a joint servicing agreement with the city of Barrie that prohibited that from moving forward. So is there an opportunity then just to inquire? I mean, to move forward with boundary exempt or moving a boundary around, if there isn't an appetite from the city of Barrie to have a joint servicing agreement, then we know the answer already. So I'm curious if there's just an opportunity, because if these opportunities do exist, we should be moving forward with them. But at the same time, with these proposals that continue to come forward with the illusion that there might be an appetite from the city of Barrie, I think that, having an understanding of what the city of Barrie is thinking would be beneficial to us.
Director Spagnell, how would that be accomplished?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. It would essentially be accomplished, I would say, the same way that it was conducted some time ago. I think Councillor Hanna had the specific year. There would have to be some form of outreach to the city of Barrie to see if there is any appetite for cross-border servicing. From a land use planning perspective, there would have to be policies that would be drafted to set the framework for how that would work. Because there's various things that have to be considered when we're dealing with the cross-border servicing. And as follow-up to that, the county of Simcoe would have to be brought on board and on side as well, because they're another upper tier that would definitely have an interest in this, just from an approval standpoint and just in the county's interest for what they represent with their official plan. So it would be the coordination of essentially the 3 tiers of government to try to determine if there's a path forward to provide for some opportunity in this area for, and providing for cross-border servicing options. What I would also submit is that as far as the official plan review process goes, the recommendation at this point is just to maintain it. To my mind, that wouldn't necessarily close the door on this discussion, because just based on the fact that the county is going through its municipal comprehensive review, the municipality at some point in the future will have to update its official plan to match the finalized municipal comprehensive review and the updated county official plan. So it is something that can be brought to the forefront as a point of discussion through the MCR process, just to get that conversation going. And it is something that can definitely include the city of Barrie to see if there's any opportunities to provide for exactly what council's talking about tonight.
And what impact would that have on our official plan review timetable?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. At this point, it would not have any impact if we went forward with the recommendation as per the discussion paper. Now, there could potentially be some revisions that or some additional commentary put in the official plan review to indicate that further discussions and review needs to occur. And if that goes through the MCR process and in consultation with the county and the city of Barrie, then it would not slow down the timeline and require additional reviews to take a look at the Greenbelt as part of this, as part of the process that's ongoing right now.
You referred to a recommendation. What recommendation are you referring to?
So the Mayor, on the discussion paper, there was a set of recommendations that were brought forward when the discussion paper came to council for review. And it was a recommendation in that the Greenbelt policy should be maintained.
Okay.
And it was to provide for just a physical separation between urban and just to identify a separation between the city of Barrie and the township of Springwater. In order to get into more detail on revising the Greenbelt, there would need to be more reviews and more studies. And I will say that we have received quite a few comments through the stakeholder outreach from property owners in the Greenbelt, so it will have to be still responded to as we move forward. I'm only suggesting that the MCR process may be the avenue because we're dealing with an upper tier document, and that may be a good way to move into discussions with the city if council wishes to do so. So I would say that both options are available through the MCR process to put this matter on the table.
Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, Mayor. And to be clear, and maybe the director correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we call it the Greenbelt, but it's basically a buffer that it's my understanding that was created by Springwater Township, and I forget what year it was, but it wasn't all that long ago, to maintain the separation from Barrie and Springwater, and I support that. I wouldn't want to see that disappear. I'm just suggesting, as the director has pointed out, there are options that we could consider, and one being advancing currently to the county's review to see what we can do in order to have, as I mentioned, our ducks in a row when these major commercial projects come forward, that we don't have to shut the door on them. I just think we're doing Springwater disservice by, I mentioned those 3 major projects that would have been a great benefit to our township for employment-wise and tax-wise. So I'm just hoping council can all understand why I'm going with this and maybe support helping staff go forward to create a policy that would allow us to let this happen.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I agree with Councillor Hanna because I think even if one of the major developers like Primacare come back, is there something prohibiting them from having their own infrastructure? So even if City of Barrie didn't want to partner with us, cross-border servicing, what's stopping them from just doing all of that themselves? They could have a well and wastewater and all of that. But yet the policy we have would still not allow them to to go ahead to construct that. So I agree with what Councillor Hannah is saying. I think we should really look at these projects on a sort of case by case basis.
Director Spagnell, could the seniors put in a big holding tank or a big septic system and a well, or if that was necessary?
Mayor Allen, I would say that the densities that Primacare was coming in, that would probably be prohibitive from a sanitary servicing standpoint. However, if you throw enough money at something, anybody will say you can build anything. But I would say that the policies that are at the provincial level really do promote full services. So municipal water, municipal wastewater systems. So I would have to think that there would have to be a servicing solution that would be driven by a system, a municipal system that could handle the requirements for such a development.
Okay, who else had a card up? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to echo Councillor Hannah's words, and also I have to admit, sitting on council and having some of these proposals come forward, and it seems like they're good for the township. That particular one by Pharmacare was good for everyone, really, and it was kind of disillusioning to see that it didn't pass. So I would like to see something move forward there. But I would like to drag us back up to the north end of Elmvale for a moment, and speak to the report as it dealt with the Elmvale settlement expansion there. I think the key thing here for us is that county is unaware that this is the way that we would like to go. So unless they know that this is what township would like to see happen, then it's a little difficult for them to partner with us until they know that this is where we'd like to go. So I would really like to see this continue to move forward, maybe as part of the comprehensive review. I think the report was good. And it did mention that there might be a cost attributed to it if we were to press further with it. But at the same time, most of these things that we're talking about the last little while are commercial and retail in nature. So we're talking about even the settlement expanding it in Elmvale isn't necessarily specific to the residential aspect, but more geared towards the commercial aspect, wherein that report that we got from the consultant that talked about commercial space in Elmvale, he provided us with an aggregate figure of square meters of commercial space in Elmvale, which sounded pretty good, but the reality was that it didn't provide a specific location where some businesses can establish themselves because they simply don't have a large enough footprint. So that aspect of still being able to move down Bayfield Street to the 8th in order to really encompass a particular business owner with a commercial entity there, who has wanted to expand for a number of years. So I think it's important for us to still move forward because, like I say, it's not necessarily the residential aspect, although with Green Meadows coming online, we are running out of residential space as well. But certainly on the commercial side, I think the consultant did council a disservice by providing us an aggregate number for the square footage of commercial space available in Elmvale, because it was literally unrealistic, given that there are a number of beer store, for example, wouldn't be able to find a location to build a retail outlet where they could have tractor trailers coming in and turning around. And in fact, that was one of the reasons that came to me when I was looking into the matter. The other thing is that these particular commercial and retail outlets, like we talk about employment for people who live in Springwater, that's exactly what we'd like to see come to Springwater. And if we were able to extend the commercial strip down Bayfield Street to the 8th, I think it would attract additional businesses. And along with the additional businesses, I think it would attract some employment opportunity for people who live in the area. I mean, Elmvale's at 2,300 in population back in 2016, and we've already got one development that's pretty much going into their last phase, and now Green Meadows is coming online. So there's just more and more people going to be living in the area. So I would really like to see us continue to move forward. I don't know if it's going to take a motion to do that, but I agree with Councillor Hanna and Councillor Ritchie. Like it's a matter of council being supportive of it and also being supportive of staff in them trying to move what we would like to see happen forwards. I guess the only other point I wanted not to make, but actually a question that might make a bit of difference to some of the areas that might like to come to the Elmvale area, for example, would be whether or not there's an opportunity to do any rezoning if a commercial entity or a business in the area did want to expand, and the only property they were able to buy was property that wasn't zoned for commercial or retail. Is that a possibility?
Director Spagno.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So I think the one thing I'd like to point out firstly is the population serving study that was done. So the commercial population serving study that was done would not get into the specifics as to where the commercial square footage would be located. What it would do is it would take a look at the land availability. So how much land is available in Elmvale and how much commercial space should be considered as part of the development moving forward. What the study also said was that in order to really harness the requirement for that commercial availability, there's a vacancy issue along the downtown, the main street businesses within Elmvale. And it recommended that needed to be figured out first. So in essence, what it's saying is that as Elmvale develops out, as a township, we need to plan for commercial development within those properties. From a vacancy standpoint and from a vacant land standpoint, the whole northwestern quadrant, or a large portion of it, of Elmvale is vacant. There's a commercial property that I believe is about 10 acres. I recall that there was a preliminary development application on there. It used to be the old site where they think they were going to put a Home Hardware or something on that property. So the basis for where they're coming in from on the standpoint of a settlement expansion is that there's vacant land available in Elmvale, and they're coming from the standpoint that from a servicing perspective, there's a fixed capacity as to what can be serviced. And then there's another consideration that looks at whether or not you're taking agricultural land or valuable agricultural land offline through the expansion. So when you pile up the consideration that there's land available in the settlement area for a commercial use, if somebody wanted to locate there, if there isn't any servicing available to go and expand the settlement area, and if that expansion is going into the agricultural area, there's three considerable policy considerations that would lend itself or that would take away the ability to actually be able to justify an expansion in this case. The one thing that I'd also like to point out is that through the discussion paper and the reviews that were done by WSP also took a look at surrounding settlement areas. So there's the prospect of setting a precedent in this case here for not just this one, but for every settlement area where a developer wants to move forward and expand. And it's the same tests for all of them. So, I mean, I can appreciate where council's coming from in that it sees, a need for commercial uses and for this expansion. And I think I'd reiterate the point that staff is just really wants to make council aware that the tests and justification that are there really take a look at those three aspects. And really when WSP took a look at this, it took a look at the township as a whole. And at this point, from when WSP did its original review, there's nothing that has changed much from when that recommendation came in to maintain the settlement areas as is, because it was their opinion that there was enough land to accommodate growth. And by growth, that means residential, commercial, and employment uses.
The other aspect that I mentioned in the previous meeting was the impact on the long-range financial plan. None of this is factored into that, and that would have to be reworked to see whether there's any financial ability to be able to handle the implications of what we're talking about here. CEO Schmidt, you have come online. Do you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment on the pharmacare conversation. So, and Director Spagnuolo can correct me if I'm wrong, but I just want to be clear that it wasn't township staff and/or City of Barrie staff that derailed anything as it relates to that particular application. To my knowledge, Township Council directed staff to speak to city staff, which we have, and due to the current pandemic, essentially pharmacare has gone silent. We haven't heard from them. So there's been no further progress and or any further dialogue with them. So again, I just want to make sure that council is aware it was not township staff or city staff that derailed that. It was simply that applicant has not moved further with their application.
Thank you. Okay, so we've received an information report. We've had discussion. The motion that is contained in the report was fulfilled with respect to coming back with this report. So Clerk Ainsworth, from a procedural perspective, where do we stand with respect to this?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So as you mentioned, the motion that's on the agenda is to simply receive the report as information encompassed with items 1 and 2. Should council wish to see further action or different action on this matter, then they could either pull item 3 and request an amendment, or if the member is not ready for any wording, could bring forward a notice of motion to continue on this project or process at this meeting or a future meeting.
Okay. All right, we have a mover and a seconder to with respect to these information reports. Councillor Ritchie.
Mayor Allen, to just comment there on Clerk Ainsworth. There's a report coming back from staff to further talk about the municipal comprehensive review. So again, we can put a motion forward then. I think they have fulfilled what our motion was, but I think the support from council was to move forward and include it in the MCR. So if we wait till the next report comes back, if it's not sufficient, then we can address it then. If that's not capable, we can address it now. But I think we can wait for the report to come. I think we've made it pretty clear we'd like to see this move forward in the municipal comprehensive review to the county.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. So if that's the will of council, then a motion would need to be put on the table to seek that direction.
Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, through you to Director Spagnuolo, I would just like to know what we could do as council, what recommendation we could make to help staff be able to accommodate the things we're trying to do.
Director Spagnuolo.
Thank you, Marilyn. I think through you to Councillor Hanna, I think really, I mean, as I said earlier when we started talking about this item, the option is available for council to articulate what it is looking for through the municipal comprehensive review process. As I noted, staff is generating a report for a meeting of council in May to basically go over the comments within the official plan review that would be forthcoming and submitted to the county. There would be additional staff comments that would be sent over to the county for review as part of their Section 26 public meeting. It's at that meeting where council we'll have the opportunity to provide council comments with respect to the MCR. So to my mind, I mean, the MCR is the process where I think council can really articulate what it's looking for, so that message can be relayed to the county. So I think it's clear what council is looking for and what council would like, and I would simply suggest that the councillors who want to bring those matters forward articulate what you'd like to see included as part of that, and then council can resolve to include those comments as part of the formal Township of Springwater comments going into the Section 26 meeting for the Municipal Comprehensive Review at the county level. So I think there's an avenue and an option to do it. This matter will be coming back to councillor, as per Councillor Ritchie's point, in the next couple of weeks. That's because the submission date for the county's MCR process is May 28th. So we are going to have to generate those comments, or at least let the county know that they're coming. But we're definitely going to have to move on those comments and have them ready. So it will be a matter that will be within the next month or so.
Okay. All right, then, given that, Councillor Ritchie?
I'm just, Mayor Allen, I'm prepared to put a motion on the table to direct staff to include these in the MCR report, or we'll wait and see what the report is in later on in the month.
Well, I think that's what Director Spagnell was suggesting, is to wait until the MCR process.
Mayor Allen, I just want to be clear here. I'm that's fine, but I want this to be included in their report. I don't want it to be divide and conquer. I say something, another councillor. I want to be united as a council, that we direct staff to have that included in the MCR report. So whether we do it tonight or we do it and on the next report coming back, we can review it, talk about it, but we want to be clear about it anyways.
Okay. Yep, it'll be clear. Okay, so we have a mover and seconder that the report items listed herein be received for information. Items 1 through 3, the Elmville Tennis Courts, the iCompass, and the Elmville Settlement Expansion. All those in favor? That is carried. Verbal reports. Director Spagnell, anything on the official plan update or economic development update?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I think I'm happy to report that now our additional residential unit policies are now in place. I believe at one point there was 51 inquiries that came in to go and examine the potential for additional residential units. So the demand is there, and staff is looking forward to processing those because there's a definite need for it. As I noted earlier, I'd just like to report that the County of Simcoe has submitted or sent out their notification of their Section 26 public meeting for their Municipal Comprehensive Review process. It's scheduled for June 8th at 10 a.m. The county has set up a website, a dedicated web page to deal with the MCR process. And the county is accepting comments from any interesting parties on May 28th. And there are sign-in details for any interested stakeholders, residents, to participate in that process. As noted earlier, staff will be preparing a report that will outline some considerations that will have to be vetted in and funneled through the MCR process. And it's through that avenue that county or that council will be able to submit their comments directly to the county, and that would form Springwater's formal submission.
And economic development?
At this point, I don't have anything new to report, Mayor Allen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. CEO Schmidt, Midhurst Development Update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to members of council. So just quickly, as it relates to the internal servicing of the subdivision, it is currently underway with underground works scheduled to be completed by the end of June. And once that's being completed, road building and utility work will commence. And it is anticipated that base asphalt could be completed by the first or second week of July. As it relates to the utility campus, the earthworks continue and the contractor has completed about 20% of the topsoil stripping and grading. They do anticipate to be completed in early June, which will then allow for building permits and construction of the water and wastewater treatment plants on those lands. And that's the update I have for Midhurst tonight, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Moving on to COVID update, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and bear with me. I may sound like a broken record here for some, but I think it's important that we provide this update to our residents. So as you're aware, the stay-at-home order and declaration of emergency are still in effect and are set to expire on May 19th and 20th, respectively. All township facilities do remain closed to the public, and staff are available to provide assistance by phone and email. Again, all township outdoor recreational amenities such as sports fields, baseball diamonds, soccer pitches, basketball, tennis, and pickleball courts, you name it, outdoor fitness equipment, they're all currently closed to the public. Our playgrounds do remain open for public use, and our township's public libraries are continuing to operate on a curbside pickup format. With respect to vaccines, so approximately 222,000 doses of COVID vaccine have been administered in Simcoe Muskoka, of which just over 202 have received their first dose, which represents approximately 32.5% of our population. In addition, 20,500 or so have received both doses, which represents about 3.3% of our population. In Springwater specifically, 43.1% have received their first dose of vaccine, and 3.6% have received their second dose. And according to the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit's website, it appears that Springwater currently has the highest vaccination rate for those aged 60 and older across all of Simcoe Muskoka. So again, congratulations to all of those that have registered and received their vaccinations and are doing their part to keep everyone safe. As of this past Monday, May 3rd, individuals who are 18 years of age and older who live in an identified hotspot community were eligible to book a COVID-19 vaccine through the provincial booking system. So in Simcoe Muskoka specifically, this means that, or Simcoe County, sorry, this means that all of those living in the town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury are able to book an appointment. To my knowledge, starting tomorrow, May 6th, the following groups will be eligible to book a COVID-19 vaccine through the provincial booking system. So individuals turning 50 or over in 2021 are eligible. Individuals with high-risk health conditions, essential workers who cannot work from home who fall under the first group, and I'll talk to the first group in a minute here. First Nations, Inuit, and Métis individuals are also eligible. So the first group of essential workers who cannot work from home include frontline workers in the following sectors: elementary and secondary school workers, so not just educators, it's custodians and administrative staff are also eligible. Workers responding to critical events, so such as police, fire, EMS. Enforcement, inspection, and compliance roles. So our bylaw enforcement officers and our building inspectors are now eligible or will be eligible as of tomorrow. Foster care agency workers, food manufacturing and distribution workers, agriculture and farm workers, funeral, crematorium, and cemetery workers will also be eligible. And further to that, on the health unit website, they have provided the following timelines for others that can expect to be eligible to register for the vaccines. Again, all subject to supply. It states that those 40 and over may be eligible the week of May 10th. 30 and over would be possibly eligible the week of May 17th, and 18 and over the week of May 24th. Lastly here, so the health unit has launched a standby list for any remaining doses at the end of each clinic day. So people who are interested must meet one of the current eligibility criteria in order to qualify, and their eligibility, from what I understand, will be reviewed if they are called to receive a dose. So people can sign up on the health unit website to be on the standby list for clinics each day, starting at 7 a.m. This list is not carried forward from one day to the next. So each day the list is cleared and a new list is created. So you would have to sign in each day around just after 7 a.m. if you want to be considered. And then lastly here, as of yesterday, Springwater has had 253 confirmed cases of COVID, which is an increase of approximately 16 cases since my last update. 220 have recovered. None are currently hospitalized, and 2 have passed. And that concludes my update. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Ritchie?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Thank you for the update, Jeff. Speaking of the COVID, I watched a thing there where a municipality in Eastern Ontario, where the council, a lot of the local groups got together, and they had a big vaccination clinic. And it got me thinking, we have a community hall sitting here in Elmville vacant. We have an arena sitting here vacant. All good, accessible, especially the community hall. It's heated, it's warm, there's parking. Why can't we reach out to the governing jurisdiction, the health unit, and mention to them that if they wanted to come up here and set up a clinic, we'd be more than willing to open the doors and help them and help with the people in this area here get vaccinated. Whitfields have done an amazing job. Reach out and ask them if they want to come and join in as well too. Like, get the ball started, put the word out there. We've got buildings all around the township. We've got buildings in Midhurst, we got buildings in Phelpson, Menacing. Elmville is such centralized, it could draw from a large area. Why can't we do that? So I want to throw that out there. Maybe Councillor Moore can advise us or tell me to go home and go to bed, and I should. But I think this would be a great thing for us to provide. We've got buildings. Why can't we do that?
CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and by all means, if Councillor Moore has further input, but staff have actually reached out to the health unit, Councillor Ritchie, and we have identified the Elmville Community Hall as a potential site and potentially the arena. Having said that, the challenge, I believe, is supply. And so there's just not enough supply to be able to open up all these clinics. We would gladly help, to be honest with you, and we're ready to go. The challenge is just not enough supply.
Follow on.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Thank you for updating me on us on that. And I just think it's something that we, the other morning I came past where they get the blood work done, and there was a lineup of people standing out there because of the COVID. You got to be spaced apart, but it just services so many people. And I got thinking, there's a community hall there, it's empty. It could service so many people. So I'm glad you've reached out and done that, because and not just in Elmville. Like as I said, we got empty halls sitting all around the township that could really service the people, and that's what we're after, is looking after and servicing the people. Thank you.
CAO, the wait list you referred to, 7 a.m. each morning, that's not just for Springwater residents, is it? That's Barrie as well as Springwater, or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it's on the Simcoe Muskoka Health Unit, so it's all Simcoe Muskoka, but I believe it may be, I'm not sure if it's provincial wide, but definitely within Simcoe Muskoka. It was announced, I believe, earlier today or yesterday. So it is available, from my understanding, to all Simcoe Muskoka residents.
So Councillor Moore, a Barrie resident could go on the Simcoe site and keep trying to get onto that wait list at 7 a.m.?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, as long as they meet the eligibility.
Yeah. Right. And the thing that's holding it up is the hotspots, probably, right?
The vaccines are going to the hotspots right now. That's why, at least 50%.
Yeah. Okay, any other? Yes, CL Schmidt.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Moore, and sorry, Councillor Moore, to put you on the spot. When you talked about the eligibility, there was a question that came up about the AstraZeneca and whether or not AstraZeneca still is available through pharmacies, and that obviously is an age 40 and over. So a question came today about whether or not the standby list, whether or not that includes eligibility 40 under or 50 and over. And I said, well, I believe it's not 40 and older, it would be 50 and over at this stage. So I'm not sure if you can clarify that.
I think you're correct. I think you're correct. The pharmacies that I'm aware of have run out of AstraZeneca, and we're not anticipating a delivery anytime soon. So we're going by, I think, mostly Pfizer at this point. And Sperling Drive in Barrie is the one that you have to access at 7 o'clock in the morning if you meet that eligibility, and I believe it's 50 and over.
Thank you.
Okay, county updates, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. And as Marilyn spoke to earlier this evening, a large portion of our meeting was dealing with the resolution for Collingwood and the judicial review. But County Council was able to come to a compromise and be able to support it in principle. So that was good to be able to support Mayor Saunderson and Deputy Hall. Also, County Council was debating garbage again, and this time it was a pilot project to be put forward in a condominium complex. So it was voted 19-12, I believe, another contentious one, that there would be smaller bins available as a pilot project to that condominium complex. We also discussed the cannabis legislation, and the surplus the county was dealt with as well. So that was that meeting.
Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through to you, to Deputy Mayor. At the Cultural Advisory Committee last night, we talked about the Ethnic Mosaic Alliance. They sent a letter to the county. Was there any update on the county's decision of that?
It was approved, I believe. It wasn't, because it wasn't a bricks and mortar. It was more of a in principle, I believe. They
were looking at donated land. It came to us first, and then they sent a letter to the county. I don't know if they haven't received it yet, or
not to my knowledge, no.
Thank you.
Okay, CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just further to the Deputy Mayor's comment there about the solid waste at the county level. So just so members of council are aware, although our building's closed right now, we did reach out, or the county actually reached out to us and asked whether or not we would be interested in displaying some of the new proposed containers that are coming out, I guess, in November. So we do have a few on site here, and we also have some literature that will go with it. And I believe there's an update tomorrow from the county, and then there'll be a kind of a more of a promotional campaign going on. But members of council, once if you're in the office or you're near the office and you're interested, they are here. You can take a look at them and voice your own opinion on them. So,
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you to CEO Schmidt. And the intent of that initiative was, I guess, once COVID has surpassed, that it would be available to residents as well for measurements and just to get an idea of what they'd be looking at. So that would be made available to residents, not just council and staff, right?
That's correct. Until our offices are open to the public, public won't be allowed in. But yes, absolutely. The intent is to provide access for our residents to take a look and see what they can expect. So.
And did the bins fit into the admin building?
No comment.
Okay, municipal updates, 10.6. I have a couple. This week is Emergency Preparedness Week. We urge people to have 72-hour kits ready in case of an emergency. Further information can be found by visiting www.getprepared.gc.ca or by contacting our illustrious Fire Chief, Kirk. And also this week is Children's Mental Health Week. Township is shining green to decrease the stigma around mental health and increase the awareness of the importance of getting support. To learn more about the resources available to youth in our area, visit www.newpath.ca. And as we heard from the clerk today, our deputy clerk, Sasha Helmke, is accepted a position as clerk and director of legislative services with the township of Clearview, which she knows well because that's where she came to us from. She's been with us since 2018, and her last day is May the 28th. So we will miss her, but it's a good move for her, and I know she'll do a great job there. Any other municipal updates? Okay, any notices of motion? Any items for future consideration? We were referring to that earlier. The IFC was what, Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm going to work with Clerk Ainsworth and come up with some better wording for that. I've sent her an email already.
Okay, good. All right, moving on to bylaws. Can I have a mover and seconder for approval of the bylaws? Is that a yes, or are you requesting to speak, Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
That was just sorry, I saw Councillor Cabral's camera just snap back on, so I just wanted to make sure that there was no IFCs or notices of motion from Councillor Cabral before we carry on.
Okay, all right, I don't see any. So mover and seconder for approval of the bylaws. I want to get Councillor Hannah's card up there. I think he's just grabbed it there. And Councillor Ma, that the bylaws listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk, 2021-48 Beaver Trapper Services Agreement, Redneck Wildlife Control, 2021-49 appoint municipal law enforcement officers, and number 3, 2021-050 meeting manager service agreement amendment. All those in favor? That is carried. And confirmatory bylaw, mover and seconder. Councillor Moore, Councillor Cabral, that the bylaw 2021-052 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of the council of the regular meeting held on May 5th, 2021 herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? That is carried. An adjournment motion, please. Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Ma, that the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 9:21 p.m. to meet again at regular meeting on May 19, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, council, and stay well. Have a good rest of the evening.